is control. And I'm going to leave it at that because we're going to be going through that and referencing that as we get into the movie. Now, what's more interesting, again, is what is the story? And this is where basically, as a teenager watching the movie for the first time, these are the things that you couldn't expect a teenager here in 2017 without the discussion of what the Matrix is and what it means, and the metaphors and symbolism and things like that to really grasp and understand, especially having never taken any type of intro to philosophy course or anything like that. So basically, again, I said it's sprinkled with so many things. You have philosophy of René Descartes and the evil genius. Either an evil genius or an evil demon, when he talks about that has the utmost power and cunning and has employed all his energies in order to deceive me. The evil demon presents an illusion of the external world, fooling the senses. So, of course, that sounds just like the Matrix. The evil demon or the evil genius, of course, would be the machines, and they've created a world of illusion, which would be the Matrix, to deceive us. You have Kant's reflections on the phenomenon, where he says humans could infer only as much as their senses allowed, but not experience the actual object itself. Basically saying that in the world of the digital Matrix, in that program, that the humans could only sense what their senses allowed them to sense. And even that scene where Morpheus says to Thomas Anderson at that point, Neo, what is real? If real are the things you touch, taste, see, and smell, then what is real is nothing more than electrical stimulation interpreted by the brain. So there's philosophy all over this movie. But the main stories is really twofold. First is the story of Socrates and his message that comes to him from the Oracle of Delphi. I prefer to say Delphi. A lot of people will say Delphi. I just think that sounds silly. So I might be completely incorrect, but from here on out, we're saying the Oracle of Delphi. As well as from Plato's Republic, the allegory of the cave. It's really these two stories. This is the movie. The movie is a representation of Socrates' mission after hearing the prophecy from the Oracle of Delphi, basically equally interwoven with the allegory of the cave. So this is where we're going to start, and we're going to go over these two stories, and as we go through them, we'll immediately compare them to what we are seeing in the movie, The Matrix. So first, we'll start with the story of Socrates and the Oracle, and with the Oracle, I'm going to leave some of the things out. We'll basically go over the story, but when we go through the movie, when we get to the scene where Neo meets the Oracle, we'll draw even more comparisons that clearly portrays this story. So, Socrates of ancient Greece is indirectly given a mission. He's basically essentially given a mission that comes from the god Apollo, which, as you watch the trilogy, is at the, sort of like the architect, via Socrates' friend. Boy, I wish he was here right now to tell me how to pronounce his name, but Seraphim is how I'm going to pronounce it. And in the course of the movie The Matrix would be Morpheus through the Oracle. And in The Matrix, there's the movie The Oracle. So basically, the Oracle has a mission for Socrates in ancient Greece, and the Oracle in the movie has a message for Neo that comes from God or the architect, and is passed not directly to Socrates or directly to Neo, but in each case a friend. So in the case of the movie, the Oracle basically tells Morpheus that he's going to find the one, and then, of course, when he finds Neo and frees him, he's the one that delivers the message. The mission for both of them is essentially to wake people up. So Socrates' mission essentially was to wake up the people of Athens, just like Neo is to wake up the people of the Matrix. And in both instances, to be woke up essentially is meaning to realize that their knowledge is incorrect. And in the movie The Matrix, it's even more specific to wake up, because essentially everybody's kind of asleep in those pods. Now, both Socrates and the Neo, before they even kind of begin their mission or get the message from the Oracle, they're both alike in that they like to ask questions. Now, anybody familiar with Socrates, of course, would understand Socrates certainly liked to ask questions to the point where we know it today as the Socratic method. And his overall question was, what is the good life? But he sought the answer to that by asking basically question after question after question. Neo has one question, essentially, and that is, what is the Matrix? Now, both Socrates and Neo essentially wind up in trouble for asking too many questions. Socrates ends up winding up on trial for his life, and Neo, he basically ends up having to fight the agents, and even before that really occurs, he's still kind of fighting the agents when, at the beginning of the movie, they kind of arrest him as as just a hacker. But in either way, basically, both of them wind up in trouble for the pursuit of their questions. So Socrates' method was asking questions until the person answering could not answer any further, or eventually contradicted themselves. Again, that's the Socratic method. This irritated people who thought that they were smart or had knowledge. Like Neo asking, what is the Matrix? For he knows that something about life or reality just isn't right. And then Socrates also starts to get that same impression, because as he begins to ask people questions who he thinks to people who he thinks has knowledge, he realizes that maybe these people just aren't so smart or really don't know as much as they think. And kind of things begin to break down for both of them. Now, this is where we kind of bring in the Oracle into the story. So, in The Matrix, the Oracle tells Morpheus he would find the one who would end the Matrix and wake everyone up. In the movie, when Neo meets Morpheus, he says he doesn't believe in fate, that he believes he is in control of his own life. So, now the trial with Socrates was recorded by Plato, and the recording of this trial is known as the Apology. So, in it, Socrates says his friend went to see the Oracle at Delphi and asked if anyone was wiser than Socrates. So, basically, Socrates' friend goes to the Oracle of Delphi and it says, is anybody smarter than Socrates? And the Oracle said, there is no one wiser. Socrates rejected this. He was kind of basically perplexed, even upset at the idea that he was the wisest, because he didn't think he was all that wise, and now the Oracle is saying that he's the wisest. Well, rather than accepting what the Oracle said as truth and being done with it, he decides to attempt to prove the Oracle wrong. So just like Neo says he prefers to believe he's in control, so does Socrates. So he believes he's in control, and then it's not just as simple as what the Oracle says, so he basically goes out and tries to find people wiser than him. In both of these instances, the oracles are essentially guiding Neo and Socrates. And for both of them, the oracle has a plan, and their words set in motion what both men do. This is even more so what we'll discover in the second and third installments of the Matrix movie. But of course, we do have the oracle scene, which we'll eventually get to when we start going through the movie. So we'll kind of stop there with the comparison to the Socrates and his journey in comparison to Neo, because we'll get more into the oracle a little bit later. But the other story, of course, is the allegory of the cave, and this is from Plato's Republic. And this is huge through the movie. I mean, this is essentially what's going on. But again, if you're unaware of this, this is very enlightening to realize for the first time, and then kind of go back and watch the movie and now knowing this. So let's start off with this. Morpheus eventually tells Neo that he was born into a prison for his mind. So let's remember that. Morpheus says to Neo, you were born into a prison for your mind. So the allegory of the cave is a story about prisoners in a cave who are chained by the neck, hands, and legs. They have been this way since birth, born into a prison, and have no conception of any other way of life. Shadows appear on the wall in front of them as their jailers pass animal figures before the light of a fire in the manner of a puppet show. The prisoners watch shadows on a wall, shadows not of real animals, but of carved figures. The light that makes these shadows possible is firelight, not even the best possible source of light, which would be the sun. Yet these prisoners do not know they are prisoners, and they do not suspect there is any reality but that which they experience. One day, however, one of these prisoners is set free of his chains, is dragged to the outside world, and by the light of the sun beholds things as they actually are. Rather than selfishly remaining in the outside world, the prisoner returns to tell the others, who reward his kindness with mockery and resistance, believing he has gone insane. So just to recap, basically the allegory of the cave is about a story of humans basically as prisoners in a cave. They don't even know they're prisoners because this is the state into which they're born. They know no other sense of being. If you, the only way you know you're a prisoner is if you're free and then become in prison. But if you're born a prisoner, you don't even know that you're a prisoner. But these are people born into a state of being a prisoner in a cave, and they're bound with their backs up against the wall. They can't move their heads, they can't move their necks, their arms or legs. They're basically stuck facing one direction, and they're facing a wall in front of them. And behind them, they can't see behind them. Behind them is a fire, and their jailers are basically walking behind them, between them and the fire, holding up like wooden carved statues or stone statues of animals, figures, statues, things like that, and the firelight is casting shadows onto the wall that's in front of the imprisoned people, who have no idea that there's a fire behind them, who have no idea that other humans exist behind them. They just think that the shadows on the wall in front of them is reality, and that is all there is. And then one day, somebody comes and releases one of those prisoners. So let's talk about that next. He says, suppose one of them were set free and forced suddenly to stand up, turn his head, and walk with his eyes lifted to the light. All these movements would be painful, and he would be too dazzled to make out the objects whose shadows he had been used to seeing. What do you think he would say if someone told him what he had formerly seen was a meaningless illusion, but now, being somewhat nearer to reality and turned towards more real objects, that he was getting a truer view? Would he not be perplexed and believe the objects now shown him to be not so real as to what he formerly saw? So essentially, Neo's cave is the Matrix, just like everybody else in it. Everybody in the Matrix is basically in a cave. They're born into this Matrix system. They're born into this cave. Everything that they see is an illusion that the people who have imprisoned them are creating for them to see, and they don't know that they're imprisoned. They don't know that what they see are illusions because they can't see. They don't even know that anything exists outside the cave. In the movie The Matrix, within the actual Matrix software, his imprisonment is for his mind. In the allegory of the cave, it was, physically and mentally. Neo's bondage is the pod that he's born into, and the black tubes going in and out of his body, and of course the one that goes into the brain. Morpheus plays the role here of the one who frees the prisoner. In Greek mythology, Morpheus is the name of the god of sleep, which is also interesting. So when we discuss the scene after Neo is awakened, we will see the similarities in how he reacts to the prisoner in this allegory of the cave story. So we just mentioned that if you imagine one of these prisoners being freed, they'd be, they haven't moved their whole life. Their neck